Yeah, I mean, I think sort of as a backdrop to why good work is important, we are definitely living in times where there's so many challenges facing the world, and from a global issue is the issues around immigration. A lot of driven by the US and their approach to immigration, the hostility towards different religions, the Me Too movement. There's so many things happening that are kind of cataclysmic kind of problems within society at the moment that I think it can make people feel a bit helpless, and particularly in the US at the moment, people see what's going on and they're wondering how they can change anything. Like they're just one voice, and I think as creatives we feel that too. We're in exactly the same position. Like, what can I do to make the world a better place? And the beauty is that we have this incredible strength called creativity that we can actually use to change the world, and I think that's why more and more brands can sort of use that idea of creativity to bring positive change to the planet, and I think people are really drawn to that at the moment because, and for me, one of the greatest examples recently is the Colin Kaepernick work for Nike. Is incredibly polarizing, but and when it first came out, people were burning their Nikes, etc. But the $6 billion increase in the value of the company, it's not all that, but as a result of that is fantastic. And I think that's a great sort of message to clients of, what, take a stand, do something good for the planet, for the world, and people will support you. I think authenticity is a huge kind of part of how brands become successful, because I think, somebody asked me the question of, what about all these brands that just do something, just sort of get behind a cause without any real depth to it? And I think the reality is that millennials particularly, which is this huge growing portion of the population with spending power, and, they're the sort of audience that everyone wants to get as, baby boomers head into retirement, etc. They look at companies and they'll make a decision between two brands, two sportswear brands, two outdoor companies, two shoe companies, and they'll look at both and go, all right, well, Tom's Shoes does that, so I'd rather put my money behind them, or Nike supports freedom of speech, so I'd rather put my money behind them. And the funny thing is they don't make decisions perhaps as lightly as we did back in the day. They genuinely get online, they research, they investigate, and I think they will call out companies that inauthentic, that I think don't actually have any truth to the sort of social cause that they're supporting. If it doesn't sort of resonate through the company and through the brand and the behaviour of the brand, then I think they'll see that as fake and move on to the next one. So, I think it's important to kind of, if you're going to get behind a cause, is to make it true to the brand and actually do something. It's interesting. I think it's funny because I just spent 4 days judging the film category, and we started asking that question of, like, what about just good old-fashioned product advertising? Where does that fit in? And I think in reality there's a sort of a partnership between the two. I think you can still do that, and that's fine, but still having to find new and different ways to do it, because the traditional media channels where you might do a product-based ad, there's just not as many opportunities to do it, and particularly when you talk about that millennial audience, they're not watching television. Gen Z is even worse. They're not even watching television on computers. They're just moved on. But I think you can still do that product work, and I think a great example is someone like Apple. Most of their work, there's sort of a two-prong approach to the launch. They'll pretty much do a 30-second spot, which is just shots of the new phone and all sexy and everything, and then they'll do a spot about attitude and about what it means to the world to have all the capabilities. So I think they work together hand in hand, and one won't go away in favour of the other, but I think you have to do both. I mean, it's interesting where we're in a sort of a strange time. I think there's a lot of financial pressure on agencies, and there's no doubt all the holding companies are feeling that. But and unfortunately, it's leading to some companies kind of stepping away a little bit from creativity in terms of the cost of creativity, because creative people are, they're making the product and they're expensive, and that's the way it is. But I think for me, I would absolutely double down on creativity and bring more and more of it into the kind of the full span of a client company. So I think looking for creativity beyond just the marketing is really, really important. And I think if agencies can start delivering creativity through everything from supply chain to packaging to marketing to product development, I think suddenly clients will realize, oh, okay, so this is what, I can't get this at a consultancy. I can't get that from Accenture because they don't focus on creativity, but I can get this incredible creativity from an agency. It's funny because I think even the fact that agencies are called advertising agencies is just such an old-fashioned word, and advertising doesn't look like advertising anymore. And when you say that, you think about, it makes you think of a certain way. I'd almost like to rename agencies to make people think differently about them. But I think, doubling down on creativity is the only way to survive, I think, and the smart companies are doing that. The thing that I've sort of talked about for a long time is this idea of passion trumps talent. And talent, to me, is almost a commodity. There are so many talented people in the world. And even from my own small experience going to university, there was 40 other kids in my class who are all really talented. And so I think in the end, the differentiating factor is this idea of passion, that someone who is more passionate to apply their talent will rise above someone who maybe is hugely talented but doesn't kind of work as hard. And I think it's funny, I've noticed over the years that sometimes the most talented people don't know how to face adversity because they're used to being brilliant at everything they do. And when they face a problem, particularly in something like advertising, where you've got a client and you have to respond to what the client wants, sometimes the most talented people don't know how to respond because they're not used to rejection. They're used to have everything being great. So I think that's where passionate people understand that, it might not happen the first time, it might not happen the second time, it might be the 7th time, but you have to have that passion to keep going and keep doing great every time so that, you can do something amazing. So I think, obviously you need talent, but I think passion is this thing that we can all find within ourselves, and I think it's a great differentiator. I think agencies just need to find ways of getting much closer to, getting clients closer to creatives. I mean, it's interesting, there's still sort of a divide between certainly some creative people who don't understand marketing and the art of selling and all that kind of stuff. They understand creativity, but I think these days you have to be much broader than that, and I think you have to be, you have to understand and be able to talk marketing. If David Ogilvy, like 60 years ago or 50 years ago, said, think like a creative, talk like an accountant. And I think that's such a truism today, is that, you can't walk into a client's office and go, this is the most creative thing you'll ever see. Because they're like, well, so what? Like, what's it going to do for the bottom line? So I think, I think the model of the future for agencies is sort of a broader range of creative people across different kind of aspects of the business, having direct contact with clients. And that's, I think they exist within agencies already. Like media particular has become a much more creatively focused companies, where they used to just plan and book media, but now they sell creativity, and I think they've sort of got there almost quicker than agencies have, because they've got both. So I think, I hope that agencies sort of keep investing in creative and broaden it out beyond just marketing.